From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between, this is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of Inside Texas High School Soccer, episode 5 of season 5. I am your host, Coach Hector Cano, joined with my one and only lovely partner who I have run out of nicknames for, the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Texas High School Soccer, Mr. SAFC himself, who likes to get all the camera glory. What else? The master of disaster, Mr. Paparosocaritis himself, Coach Rafa Castorena. Coach, what's up, buddy?
Not much, just back from my Centex trip, and I'll be hitting the road again on Thursday to Austin and then up to West Texas. So I might have a little live. I think I have a game already selected where I'm going to be attending, so tune in for that.
There you go. Good deal. Good deal. So this back to the Cent. No, you're not going back to the Centex, are you? No. Yeah, it's
going to Midland, Odessa.
Yeah, I was going to say regular West Texas. I don't call that really West Texas. Where I'm from is West Texas, but yeah, man, welcome. Good to see you. Our first show back in what's almost 2 weeks. Back on January 20th was our last episode. Excited for what we got going on today. Thank you for being here again. Really excited in terms of not only the guests that we have today, but also, you know, we're spicing things up here a little bit, adding a new kind of wrinkle here, right? So we're not gonna touch base with the RPI yet, not the latest version of the RPI, or at least the full RPI, but we are going to tackle the latest edition of our dark horse list, meaning if you were on there previously, you're either still on there or you have clearly separated yourself beyond becoming a dark horse, if you will. But we are also going to add the premiere of what we call our hidden gem list. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we're gonna skip our game balls for today. We're actually going to issue those probably maybe later in the week, or at least I will. I don't know if Rafa will. I know Rafa wasn't a little too sure, had a hard time deciding, but look for those to come from me later in the week, early in the week, I should say. But we are going to also discuss our teams of the week. But before we dive into all of that, what else has been going on, Rafa? I know you've been kind of all over the place. I don't even know where I think you're back home right now, right? You're back here.
Yeah, I'm back home. Yeah. So I'll be here for a few days.
Yeah. The big thing is now, you know, a couple of weeks ago we had to thaw out, and now this week we got some places in Texas that might hit 90 degrees in first week in February. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. But yeah, hey, we excited to get going with today's show. Let me go ahead and get a quick drink of the energy drink here.
I guess the groundhog got it wrong. I was gonna say that I guess the groundhog got it wrong. Today's Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah, it is today, isn't it? Yeah, who listens to that guy anyway, right? But we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna bring in. Speaking of energy, we're gonna bring in our first guest of the show. He is also no stranger to the 50/50 Podcast, trying to grow as great of a beard as me. He is Coach Michael Strong, the head men's soccer coach of the Bernie Greyhounds. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here once again. You might be in the running now, I think, for the gold coat, man. I think you might have everybody. This is appearance maybe number 6, I think.
Jeez, is it really? That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
I expect a little box of my own then in the lower left-hand corner.
Something like that. Hey, man. Hey. We're lucky we let you get your name. Not that you need an introduction at this point, but well, hey, before we kind of dive in and start talking about your boys, start talking about the season. Tell us what's new and what's going on.
Man, 5A, right? It's been fun. Team is starting to come together. It's very interesting because obviously in our old district we had I think 7 teams. Now we've got 9, so we have to start way earlier. Didn't have much of a preseason, so you don't get as much time to experiment with things, and so that's been kind of the biggest adjustment so far. And hopefully we're starting to hit our stride.
Yeah. Now obviously you had your time in 4A, right? Which is largely known throughout the state, right? You all had definitely were one of the key players in large, and you can make the argument for having a stranglehold within your district and the state at 4A, but now you make the jump to 5A, right? What have you separated maybe from myth from fact in your short time in 5A?
I think factually, it is harder to get quality chances. I would say at 4A, you just don't have the depth of, complete teams sometimes. Sometimes there's, a couple guys out there who aren't playing club soccer, right? Or who are maybe a lot of guys who aren't playing club soccer. Whereas in 5A, I think everyone is playing club soccer at this point, has been playing club soccer for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think getting quality chances in the final third has been a lot more I would say probably 35 to 40% less quality chances in the final third than you would in 4A,
Mhm.
if that kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect. Now, that said, did that surprise you?
Um, I didn't go in with any preconceived note because we play 6A schools
Right.
preseason
All the time.
every year,
Yeah.
and that's how I always loaded our schedule. So I don't think anything surprised me. I think the biggest kind of surprise is getting into district and not knowing anything about any team. It's like, I mean, obviously you know about their previous results and records, but I don't know how they play. I don't know how their coaches are. I don't know how their players play, stylistically how they like to play. So that was a big learning curve getting through this first round of district.
Mhm. So you play, let's talk about your district a little bit. 26 5A, your first year in 5A, 26 5A, and what Rafa has dubbed the group of death, right? In Region 4, and arguably one of without a doubt, one of the toughest districts in the state, definitely in Region 4. Hey, you're through 9 games, you're 7-1-1, 5-0-1 in district play. How has, you mentioned you didn't get a lot of time to prepare prior going into district because of the number of teams, but what have you largely found out about your squad up to this point so far?
I think defensively, we've been playing pretty well. We pressure, we get after it, and it's kind of been a hallmark of our program now for the last, 5, 6, 7 years since I've been here. It's something I've tried to implement, and we take a lot of pride in. But I think this group I've really enjoyed being around this group, coaching this group. They're, even my seniors are young at heart, if that makes sense. Obviously, they're all kids, so they're all young or young men, but
Right.
very, very young at heart group, which can have its good and bad, right? But
Right.
it's made it a lot of fun. They're jokesters. They like to goof off. They like to joke around, but at the same time, they know when to bring it back at practice when it's time to get serious. So it's been a lot of fun there. But I would say, last year we lost a lot of seniors. We lost like 8 or 9 seniors. And it was, well, now we're going to 5A, it's going to be a big struggle. And not that it's been easy by any means, but I think that the players that needed to step up really stepped up and are continuing to step up. We are nowhere near our potential, which for me is very exciting.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you mentioned you may have not had very many preconceived notions going into 5A. Different story, right? Sometimes when we coach 14 to 18-year-olds, right? So trying to manage that, right? What did you largely find? Because obviously you knew this back in the spring that you were going into this district, into 5A realignment, reclassification. But how did you feel your squad, your boys going back to the fall, the preseason, before the actual season began? How did you feel they were looking at it, and how did you manage that?
Excitement. They were chomping at the bit. Like you said, we'd had a lot of success at 4A, and I think a lot of them were really, really excited to compete against 5A. And then obviously we've got Champion in town. Shout out to Coach Gold. He's got them moving. They lost a lot of players to the club team in San Antonio, their River. But we always hear, oh, well, you guys are 4A, we're 5A. Like what you're doing down there it's cute, good job, little guys, and pat you on the head. And so I know my boys are really excited for this year. And that's kind of how I built it up too. I said, everyone says this, the success we had was only because we were 4A, right? And that you can't have that success at 5A. And I told them that you are going to have a target on your back because everyone's going to want to say, put you in your place. No, you are the 4A guys. We beat y'all. That's welcome to 5A kind of thing. And so I talked about that. We built that up, and again, I think they've really answered the call.
Yeah, Rafa.
Coach, do you feel like it in the situation you're in kind of similar what like a few years ago, like from Dripping Springs, how they jumped up from 5A, made it to the final, and then and then 6A they got to the final. Any feeling you may have may repeat something similar to that this year?
Some lofty goals. I talked to their coach on that one. That was I forget his name. I'm sorry. But that was an incredible run to go from 5A to 6A. I think they barely made it into the playoffs as the 4 seed. And then the run they had through the playoffs was absolutely incredible. I think we're going to be in the mix. I think we always will be. We still have a really good Piper team to play, and then we've got New Braunfels. So we still have the 1st seed and the 3rd seed in the district to play. So there's a long time before playoffs, but again, if it's a trajectory, I really like the path that we're on right now to see how close we can get to our potential.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And one of the things too is in your time. So obviously, we've had these conversations, Coach, offline, right? Where I think you tackle the season, particularly that first part of the non-district schedule. I think you and I kind of largely look at it the same, like to tackle it the same way. Except this year, you only got in 3. What was it? I think 3 non-district matches right prior to the start of district play.
Yeah.
In your short time, right, 6 games in, because this is the first time this whole district has been put together the way you see it now, right? So, so it's not like it was everybody has been in the mix for a while and then you all just joined, right? So, that said, how would you describe thus far? Maybe the personality, you're starting to figure it out a little bit. The personality, the characteristics of this particular district.
Golly, this district is there's a lot of quality in it. It's a lot of athleticism. On any given night, I genuinely believe that anyone can win a game. I mean, look at champion Smithson Valley. They each have 3 ties. We tied Smithson Valley, and that just shows the parity in the district on how really tight it is. And again, we'll know a lot more after next week, and going into the following week we finish that first round. But it is injuries, sick, flu's going on everywhere, right? It's like on any given night, if you don't have your dudes or if someone doesn't perform or you get, unlucky or, a call, it really is any team's, any given night, any team can win kind of thing. So, it's a resilient district, and there are probably 6-7 teams deserving of going to the playoffs, and unfortunately only 4 can go.
Now you still have about, if memory serves me right, about 9 or 10 more district games still to play, right? Matches still to play, somewhere right around in there.
9,
yeah. So in that, and I get it, it's still a long way to go. But when you just start to, not so much that you're looking ahead, but when you survey the region 4, because this is new territory in terms of 5A, what do you make of when you look across region 4?
First, you've got to look up to the Leanders, the Glens, the Rouse is in there, Liberty Hill, Cedar Park. I'm keeping an eye on Cedar Park and Liberty Hill, obviously, because they're smaller. So I know that they'll probably be going D2 with us. I'd be lying if I said I didn't go through and look at the attendance numbers and on everything. But we're looking at that. Cedar Park's doing really well this year. They tied Wakeland. Obviously, I think they're going to be a really tough opponent if we have to face up with them. And then second round, you're looking at like MacArthur or Harlandale, a team along those lines. Again, both teams doing very well. And then you look at the Brownsville schools, right? You got Porter, Rivetta, Lopez. You got Sherryland in there. There are it kind of reminds me of, it's kind of always the same, right? You got to get through your area and then you got to get through the valley kind of thing. And I think it's very similar. I think, stylistically, I should take that back. I think, Progresso last year, Hidalgo, a couple years before that, I think those 2 teams would have competed with any of the 5A, 6As down there for, to get out of the region, to go to state. So in Progresso this year's destroying everybody apparently. So yeah, it's going to be a different style of play down there. Hopefully, I think the biggest change is that first round, right? The first round now you're playing, and not that we weren't playing anyone good before, right? If you make the playoffs, you're a good team, but it's another step above, especially with the D1 D2 split. It's getting out of that first round is going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had that conversation right the other day on where I think you can legitimately make the argument that, and don't get me wrong, right? In terms of 6A is known in terms of this, just the size of the schools, some of the great powerhouses in the state. But when you look at the volume of talent within some of these many districts, this is just one region that we're talking about, right? Region 4. But when you look at it across the state, across all 4 regions, you can make the argument that the level of depth that there is at 5A very much can rival 6A, right? When we're just talking about a depth, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, and I think a big part of it goes to health and keeping your guys as healthy as possible. And the 6A, they may have 5 or 6 subs who are pretty close to kind of their starters maybe. But at 5A, I think as long as you can keep your 11 guys healthy or your 13, 14 rotation guys, you can compete with anyone if you've got a good team. If you've got a solid squad. So
yeah. So the drop off, surprisingly, so drop off is really what we're talking about.
Yeah. I think the drop off.
Rafa?
Coach, knowing that there's no regional regional tournament this year, maybe if you do get to that point, how do you feel now that playing at neutral site instead of going to the Valley to go to play like a regional tournament? How do you feel about that?
Or was that 2 years ago, man? I absolutely hated the regional tournament. I think it is. I mean, it's crazy enough playing 2 games in a week, to play 2 games in 2 days and less than 2 days, right? I mean, shoot, when we lost to Hidalgo, we played past midnight, and then we played Hidalgo at 1 p.m. the next day. That to me is.
I still can't believe that one. Of all the ones, that's the one that we talked about it at the Tasco convention, right? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I remember.
So, but I mean, it's so to your question, Rafa, I'm thrilled that we are not doing regional tournaments anymore. Now, it does make it interesting because if it is a Valley school, right, we'll be playing at Cabinus, 99% of the time, which they're used to or used to. It does make the dynamic of, going for the regional tournament, we'd go the night before. You get to sleep there, sleep in, do your normal kind of routines. Whereas now it's going to be, hey, you go to school. Now you got to go to Corpus, 2 hours of bus, 2.5 hours of bus on your legs. It definitely changes the dynamic a little bit, but I'll take that over a regional tournament.
Well,
I was going to ask him, is there any maybe taking a chance of flipping home and home, maybe bringing them over here?
Ooh, we played a lot in the Valley. We went down to the Hidalgo tournament, Progresso tournaments every year. Those are our out of town tournaments. So I think it's a great environment. It's a lot of fun. So I'm not sure I'd be opposed. I'd have to ask. I always ask my team that. I'm a big believer in asking the guys. What would y'all want to do? So I wouldn't say no, but probably neutral.
Right. Yeah, and that brings us to you kind of gave me an opportunity to segue there earlier, Coach, but your thoughts, right? We start looking at, and you alluded to it a little bit in terms of looking ahead, but which is inevitable to a certain extent, but the D1 D2 split, right? That, and we've talked about the historic season that this is going to be, along with the mercy rule both of these were implemented within months of each other to start this year, right? Which I think took many of us aback. What are your thoughts on both of those?
We'll start with the mercy rule. I think it's good. I definitely, the games don't need to be going past 8-9-0. I think, and we had kind of talked about this. It's still a difficult situation because it's like, oh well, some coaches are going to say, well, hey, there's a mercy rule in place, so I'm allowed to score as many goals as I want before we get to that mercy rule, right? So if we score 30 goals in 59 minutes and 59 seconds, great. So there, I think it can kind of leave that there. So I'm not sure if it's a perfect system, but I'm definitely for the mercy rule as opposed to just playing possession or sitting at midfield and letting the team dribble up to midfield and then pressing them. Like, I just don't think that was maybe the best thing for any of the kids or the coaches.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's my take on mercy rule. And then for the D1 D2 split, it makes these districts really interesting right now, and I'm not sure it's going to stay if they'll end up doing like they do for 5A. We'll split it before, but man, it's it just makes the district so important. That's what I've told the guys. It's like it's not okay to drop points. Like us tying Smithson Valley, that hurt you. We dropped 2 points on that, and you need every point you can get, especially like in our district. And so I think it's right now. Well, again, I'm saying this from my perspective in our district. It's harder now than if they did a D1 D2 split before the season. Yeah, like trying to get top 4 in this district right now is crazy. And there's a lot of districts like that. I'm sure MacArthur's saying that with Southwest as well, right? Like, thank goodness Southwest is going D1, but man, those guys are destroying everybody. And it's like, yeah, we would probably like not having Southwest in that district and us in MacArthur, Alma Heights, whoever, making a district, Tybee kind of thing. With Tybee be 4A, I learned their numbers are crazy. There should be a 4A school. So yeah, I think if they split it before the season, I think it'll even out, right? I think the teams that should be going on will go on, and the teams that shouldn't won't be. But right now, with the way it's set up, it sets up for some really monster districts where it's just really difficult.
Yeah, it is a lot of change. It is a lot of change, and it's hard to. You're kind of having to adjust to it on the fly and you don't have all the answers, or you may not know. I mean, you may know where you might fall in line as far as what division, but you're still not going to have you're really not going to know what your path is going to look like, right, until we enter the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's the other component, right, that I think not a lot of people have put together. So yeah, I mean, you keep mentioning this MacArthur school. I've never heard of them. You'll have to tell me a little bit more about them later, Coach, but I'm not up to speed on them. So
that's shocking. I would hope you know a little bit more about them.
You would think, right? But yeah, I'm not really up to speed on a lot of these schools here. So, but hey, Coach, as we start wrapping up here with you, first and foremost, just want to thank you for your time again. You've always been very accessible to us, and big supporters of you all. What you're doing in particular there, how you run your program. I think you and I, in particular, as Texas high school soccer coaches, have always had a great rapport, great relationship, great friendship, because I think we see the game in so many similar ways. So I appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. But before we let you go, kind of want to give you the opportunity, as is customary, give you the opportunity to talk about any shout outs, thank yous, anything that's on your mind as it relates to the game. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. The floor is yours.
Just shout out my team right now. Like I said, they've stepped up. They've answered the call to being in 5A, and I think they've really done a great job, and they've been excited about it. Like I said, it's been a really fun year for me personally. So big shout out to them. Shout out to my sick wife and baby in the room she's holding down the fort.
Yeah.
And obviously shout out to you guys. I really appreciate your guys' content. You guys really putting Texas high school soccer on a map, and being accessible to people, because without your guys' platform, I'm not sure any of these great stories get told. I know, all these other coaches who get to come on your show and talk about their programs. It really is special.
Well, that's not what you were saying back at Tasco, man. You were giving me a hard time at Tasco the whole time. So I don't know.
Well, the camera's running right now, man. That's why. I mean, come on. Professionalism. Let's go. No, but seriously, you guys are amazing, Rafa. Again, you guys make a great team, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to be on y'all's program.
Yeah, appreciate you, Coach Strong. And yeah, I think the big thing here in San Antonio is we're pretty blessed. We're pretty spoiled to have multiple outlets, right, that cover our high school athletes. So that's a great thing.
We do. And I'm not big on social media, so that I know 6A, high school, he's all over it and stuff. And there are a lot. I shouldn't say that no one covers it. But
No. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know that's what I
the
mean. That's my
YouTube
point.
space, man. There's and that's where I live. I live on YouTube, so no, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell your wife thank you for picking up the slack, which I'm sure is often the case, right, in that household.
I'd be lying if I said no.
And make sure mom and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Strong, make sure you give them a shout out for us as well. Tell them
Absolutely, I will.
say hi.
They're probably listening and they love your show.
Yeah, they've been huge supporters from day one of the podcast. It really since before we got you on the first time. So really grateful to them as well, to the entire Strong household.
Yeah, they're crazy fans.
Yeah. So appreciate you, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck. I know you guys are going to be definitely in the mix in that tough 26-5A, but we look forward to covering you down the road. And please don't hesitate to reach out if we can do anything to help you out.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate it. Best of luck to you and your girls.
Take care. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All right, man. Thoughts? Always great to have Coach.
Always have you. You're gonna have to have next time when he comes on. They're gonna put how many caps he has on the show as far as appearances.
Oh yeah, I know, man. We're gonna have to. Yeah,
we're gonna have to do that to figure out who has the most caps. Yeah, who has the most caps.
First one to hit 10. I don't know. Gets.
Gonna get the star.
Gets yeah.
Gets the gold star.
Yeah. Gets a star.
Or the captain's armband.
Yeah, big shout out again to Coach Strong for joining us, who just always gives us great information and just really love the way he runs his program. Thoughts on what he kind of had to say? Before we get to that, shout out to Ken Murphy of Ken Murphy Photography for joining us on here. Really appreciate you, Ken. Thank you for joining us. Thoughts on some of what the Coach Strong had to
Strong there too. Yeah, it says there, go Hounds. And yeah, that transition, you're not sure, like he mentioned, he came to a district that he wasn't really.
He basically said, "What transition?" That's what he basically said. What transition? Right? No transition. No, he's not going to say that.
Different teams. Yeah,
I'm going to brag on him a little bit, but yeah, I mean, did we really expect anything different from a program? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It is no disrespect to any other program in that tough 26-5A. From your Elmo Heights, Smithson Valleys, Pipers of the world, just to name a few, and then you have Tybee. It's just, but I think this is just, with what he's built at Bernie, it's kind of extract them out of 4A and insert them in any classification in just about any district in the state, and it won't matter. They'll compete, right? They'll compete. So there's a lot to be said that, because they're kind of, there is a common ground between the template between both them, what Coach Strong has built there at Bernie, along with our next coach that we're going to bring in shortly, because they've proven that they can do it on multiple levels and multiple fronts, and they've kind of laid the blueprint for how to do it.
Yeah, like he mentioned something about not being familiar with those teams because he's really haven't played them or much. But like I said, you see the response that they've done so far, and one thing I guess I forgot to ask him was like how did it feel playing against Bernie Champion? How the community felt, having kind of their pretty much like the first ever their Classico. I guess you can call it the Highway 46 Classico, and
the little brother, if you will, so to speak. I know he wouldn't use that, but I mean, it's a good point. That's a good point. I completely forgot to mention that to him, so I'll have to ask him that later. But it's a great point. So again, thanks to Coach Strong of the Bernie Greyhounds for joining us. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in our next guest. He's making his first time appearance on the podcast. He is Coach Kyle Olson, the head men's soccer coach of the Austin Northeast Early College High School Raiders. Coach, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here.
A little bit behind in my Caps appearance, but if we keep winning, hopefully that'll work itself out.
Rafael, he's kind of like Oprah Winfrey. He just wants to give everyone a star. So don't worry, you'll get a star as well, right? With Coach Strong. So, hey, the first cap is the most memorable.
You may end up getting the star that really counts the most after this year.
Look at him segue. So, Coach, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Before we kind of start diving in, start talking a little bit about your boys, start talking about the region. What's going on? How's your weekend? Coming off of a game day on Friday evening. Tell us what's going on.
Well, we actually played Saturday morning this week. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Did I
Don't
misread that? I thought you all played late Friday. I thought I saw a final score update late Friday. Okay, never mind.
Saturday morning, yeah, this weekend.
Mhm.
I don't prefer Saturday morning games to Friday night games, but pulled out the 1-0 victory. Still remain in first place in district for the time being. Focused on the next one, and then after that, as far as the weekend goes, it's just rest, recover, spend time with the fam, and then got out to play a little old men's league soccer this morning at Zilker Park in Austin, Texas. Can't
God bless
complain
you.
too much
God
about
bless
that.
you. Yeah. The yeah, I'm thinking about it. I had a hard time sleeping after my match Friday night, so I might have been up for so long that your Saturday morning match might have just felt like still Friday night to me. So
Yeah.
apologies. I did notice that you cited, or your admin cited for your account, that it was a tough game, right? It was a tough, frustrating 1-0 match that you guys pulled out. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, tough 1-0 grind out victory. We played a really well organized, well coached Lago Vista team. They're a pretty new program. They have their coach, Coach Stratton, used to coach at McNeil, and back in the day, took them really far. Was Central Texas Coach of the Year sometime around 2011 when I made my first playoff appearance with my old school. And anyway, just really solid coach, had the boys really well organized, tough to break down, low block, hit the post a couple times, but ultimately pulled out the 3 points, and we'll take it, keep rolling on to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, we talk about you're doing we just had Coach Strong on from Bernie. You're doing the kind of the opposite shuffle, right? They've been in 4A forever and just made that leap to 5A this year. And you're the opposite, just came down from 5A back into 4A, 25 4A. What has that transition been like going down from 5 to 4?
Yeah. Well, living it right now, but so far so good. Going down from 5A to 4A, you have a couple more unique challenges, longer travel. You have smaller teams. Honestly, it's proved a lot more difficult to scout the teams in my district than it was when I was previously in the 5A, 25 5A Austin area district. And so a lot more unknowns, a lot more kind of variables at play, different referee associations, all those kind of lovely factors into it, the kind of intangibles. But ultimately, on my end and controlling what I can control with my boys in my program, not too much has changed as far as the way we approach it, our style of play, and things like that. A little few tweaks based on the individual opponent and how we run things. But ultimately, we're doing what we do and doing what we do well, and hoping that that's going to be enough.
Yeah. So 25 4A, right? Talk to us a little bit about 25 4A. You're off to an 8-1 start overall, 5-0 in district play. So again, same thing, just like Coach Strong, not very many matches in between non-district and district. What did you think you knew during the 4 non-district matches prior to the start of district play? What did you think you knew about your squad that maybe has been, I guess, validated through district play so far?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. We learned a lot about our defense and our defensive shape. Ultimately, we're still a possession-based team and still kind of play the same way that we were in the non-district. Just made a couple tweaks as far as, kind of squad rotations, who's playing where, and we're trying to work out kind of our defensive shape and our press. And I think we've found out a little bit of kind of what works best for us on that end. And so now it's just about finishing the opportunities that we can create.
Yeah. Rafa?
Coach, going into the district, like last year, Austin and Chief won the district title. How did the boys feel going into that game? Because I know you guys won that game. How did they feel about getting the win over them?
Yeah, they felt great. We've played Achieve in some format of scrimmage and non-district for a couple of years because they're very close geographical proximity to our school. So short bus ride, all those things, and their coach is great as well. So we knew going in, right? We had we knew going in that they were the team to beat. They're a very high quality squad. It was a 3-2 game, a great showcase for just high school soccer, especially in our district. And we knew going in, they were our first game in district. So it was like, we have to start strong. We have to start at our best, and then kind of see where we go from there. But we knew if we got that first one down, that after that, we put ourselves on a good path. And so after that, it's just been managing some of the new opponents that we have. And of course, in our district, we have a mix. So like we had some of the other Austin area schools drop down to 4A with us from the 5A district, which a lot of those schools, to be fair, and even my school, we've had 4A numbers for pretty much the last 2 UIL realignment cycles and just been opted up to 5A, which, pros and cons to all of that. But we knew Achieve was definitely the team to beat, and we were super excited to pull that one off. And we're going to have a really difficult time going back to their place and playing them again in the second round.
Now, how have you, obviously as coaches, we know to look beyond the facade that is, hey, it's 4A, so that just means it's simply going to be easier than 5A, right? We know that. How do you get that message across? How have you managed that message across to your boys throughout the fall season and into the start of district play?
Yeah. Well, I think there's some pros and cons to the kids that I coach, right? My kids don't play club soccer. I think I only have one on my varsity team that plays club soccer. So a lot of them are playing really tight, close-knit kind of Hispanic leagues where they don't really know a lot about kind of the high school soccer landscape, right? And, oh, this school's a 5A school, this school's a 4A school, oh, this school is that. They have their friends that play local high schools around us. But really, it's just been a lot about focusing on what we do and what we do well. And so, my mantra is always, the best team that we play is the next team we play. The most important game is this next important game. And all that coach speak and stuff, works to a degree, but I've really got the boys, I think, bought in to focusing on one game at a time, and not really worrying about who the opponent is. If we're playing Achieve, we have to play at a certain level. And if we're playing LBJ, Lago Vista, whoever it is in our district, we have to play at that exact same level. And that's been our focus really, and how I'm trying to kind of manage it and message it to my boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as beyond 25 4A, your region, right? You start to look at the landscape of the region. What stands out to you?
Yeah. Well, I agree with the previous coach and what he said about maybe a little bit more inconsistency among teams in 4A than 5A overall. But the 4A region that we're in Region 4, which is new for us because we're transitioning from Region 3 to Region 4 when we moved down to 4A, looks really tough. You have some really, really strong schools, Maynard, Newtek, Salado, which I believe is kind of more or less our by district. And you guys have already touched on numerous times that D1, D2 split, and just who knows what's going to happen with that, who you might play in the first round, which, makes it a lot more difficult to prepare for those games coming in. But they're going to bring some really quality opposition for us. And then, even your previous coach mentioned it, Progresso down in the valleys, tearing everybody up. So we're looking forward to some new experiences, traveling south instead of traveling east to Houston area. And we definitely have the competition there to give us a really, really tough time.
Yeah. And your thoughts on that? We asked Coach Strong about it, and so I wanted to ask you about it as well, in terms of just the historic season that is going to be this year, from the fact that there's no longer a state tournament, right? There's no longer a traditional state tournament. There's no longer a traditional regional tournament. It looks very different. The D1, D2 split, and then of course the mercy rule. What are between what you've seen and what you've heard, and then what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. Well, I'll start in the order that you kind of laid it out there. The D1, D2 split, pretty much it's the wild, wild west, right? I talked to some of the other coaches, the Chief coach before the game, the LBJ coach, and talked to him a little bit about it. And it was like, we don't really know who you're going to play. You could play a number 1, a number 2, a number 3, a number 4, based off kind of numbers, depending on where you finish. And so it's really just wide open. And it's really about just, kind of taking it one step at a time and preparing as best you can when you get to that point, right? Hopefully we'll be in a position where I have to really stress about preparing for an opponent I've never seen or don't know much about. But so really for that, it's completely wide open. As far as the mercy rule, I agree. Overall, I like it. It's not perfect. I trust the powers that be. There's some really smart people out there running Texas high school soccer, but I kind of wonder, like, what's the math to get to 8, right? Like, why 8-0? I don't know. Like 5-0 seems really tough to come back from, right? And then the whole 20 minutes in the second half makes it really tough on coaches. I haven't been there on my varsity side yet, but on the JV side, we've had to navigate some games where it was like, do we tell them to stop scoring? We know the mercy rule, right? Like, but there's 20 more minutes left to play. Do we play possession? And then how does that really help us, but also, I mean, respect the other team and the other opponent? And so that, that's a little tough thing to navigate, right? Are you going to put up 12 and then, okay, 60 minutes, you're done? Or are you going to put up 7 and then try to possess and kind of work on some stuff for your own team sake, sort of speak? And we've taken kind of the latter approach, but 8-0, 20 minutes left. I think all, reasonable, rational people that love the game of soccer would say it's pretty much over, and was probably over a little bit before that too as well. So I like it. It needed to be there. There were some ridiculous scores, I think, that were just honestly a little disrespectful at times. And so I'm glad at least it's taken care of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, when I had Tasco president Chris Besner on, the day that I had him on was when the mercy rule, when the enactment of the mercy rule broke, right? The news of that broke, and it was 73% of the 800 coaches that took the survey, right? 73% of them were in favor, of this rule, right? Now, and you're right. I think part of the question is what were the conversations? What were the options? What was discussed? How much was it discussed to arrive at 8-0, right? For a number of reasons. And I get it sometimes, because I've seen multiple kinds of games in terms of 5-6-0 that looked very different, right? Some of them were like, the teams were going back and forth, and the team that did score, that was winning, they earned everything, right? The other team didn't kind of lay down or quit. I've seen some where it was, hey, you're down 4-0 quickly in a game, and one of them is a deflection, another one is a known goal, unlucky, right? So there are variations of it, right? But you're right. I think one of the other things too is that makes it tricky. Whenever you start, my biggest fear was what I told Coach Besner was, my biggest fear was the law of unintended consequences that could kind of roll out with this, right? Because you are going to have some coaches that simply say, it's like, hey, 60 minutes is 60 minutes. So I'm not going to overly restrict my guys, especially once we're up 3-4-0, and I'm getting maybe some of my guys, some of my girls that have get less playing time, need to work on development. I have to then in turn tell them, hey, don't score, or you have to complete 15 passes and only score off of a cross, or I get it. It puts everybody in a tough spot. And then if you are that program, if you are that coach, or if you are in the stands and you're on the other end of that, right, of that, it's 6-7-0, what have you, but then you're seeing that the other team is largely playing keep away, right? How do you how do you interpret that as well, right? So there is no perfect solution. And I think the other part too was what I meant by law of unintended consequences was that I don't know if the powers that be at UAL thought they would no longer see a score line larger than 8-0, because that's not the case. Because if you go by the rule, that is not what it says at all, right? So it's just a tough spot. And when you start manipulating the game further, it's hard to, as I told Coach Strong when I had a conversation with him, once you kind of you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, right? So that's the tricky part. So
yeah.
Rafa? Oh, I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think it all boils down to just respect for the game, respect for your opponent, right? I mean, like you're laying out a scenario where you get a couple of early lucky goals, right? Well, then that's definitely one thing. But when you're, just putting it on a team, and I've been doing this for a long time, even as a player, and as a player, I always thought, man, you're passing the ball around me and just keeping it away, like that's really tough to manage as a player, right? And then as a coach, when I see on the other end, and it's like, man, you guys are putting in a crazy amount of goals on us, that's not really the best, scenario either, right? No one needs to get beat down that bad. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one how you play it. And like I said, I just go back to telling my boys, hey, we're respecting our opponent, we're respecting the game, and how we do it matters. How we do it, whether we score 8 or whether we start possessing and knocking the ball around the back, and they're sitting back and just letting us do that. Like whatever's most respectful for them is kind of the best approach. And I've even told some other coaches, man, hey, y'all let me know. Y'all let me know if we're not doing it right, and I'll make some in-game adjustments as best I can to manage it out in a more respectful way. And hopefully the other coaches that I've gone against feel that I've done that successfully, or our program has. Yeah.
Right. Rafa?
Coach, a few years ago, you had that big amazing run in Region 3 and knocking out some really great teams. And now with this year, how are the expectations now being in Region 4? How do the boys feel about this year? Do they feel like, hey, we can make that run again like we did a couple years ago?
Thank you for bringing that up. The recent past, the 2022 regional run. Yeah, I was hoping that someone would mention that. No, that was a very unique, set of circumstances that led to that, right? I mean, we knocked off Katy Paytow in the first round 1-0, and I think they were like number 1 or 2 in the state. It was that one, and at their place, traveling to Katy to play was crazy. And then after that, just rolling the dice, and we really came together real tight as a tight unit. Ultimately went down to Katy Jordan on PKs in the regional final. And I know the other coach had a horror story, but mine was pretty similar. We played the regional semis and went to PKs, went like 10 rounds deep in PKs, finished that game, and then and I'm sure Jordan was fatigued as well, but I know we went down to PKs again in the regional finals the next day, just relatively hours later. And I know fatigue had something to do with a lot of the boys. Right. But to answer your question, Rafa, I think we believe in ourselves, but we're not trying to get ahead of ourselves. I really don't have, I have maybe 1 or 2 boys around still that were there, had my goalkeeper now, actually his older brother was my goalkeeper for the regional run. So he was there and knows a lot about it. I always say that 22 years set the bar for our program. Right. And ever since then, we talk a lot about golden ball trophies. And it's like, that's our goal every year, go get that golden ball. And then I do feel like, it's similar to World Cup, right? You got your group stage with district, and you get out of there first. And then after that, knock out, win, keep playing, lose, you go home. And so you just take it one game at a time. I think we believe, based off of our results in 4A, and we scrimmaged 3 4A schools as well. We got a good kind of gauge of where we're at within 4A, and hopefully we can run. But like you said, or like I think the previous coach mentioned, right? A lot of it's going to be about that D1, D2 split, who you draw, where you're playing, and it possibly even in the early rounds. I think we're going to see some big, strong schools with some really strong programs go out a little bit earlier than maybe normal.
Yeah. Yeah, Rafa was going to be the one that mentioned 22, coach, because I wasn't, because I was thoroughly upset with you, because you guys were my bracket busters, man. You guys thoroughly destroyed my bracket that year.
Not just you, man. Not just you.
Yeah. Not that, but I've gotten over it. But hey, coach, as we start wrapping up here, and we want to, first of all, again, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you getting your first cap, right? Your first appearance. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, if you can, so you're kind of in a unique perspective where you teach and coach in a unique setting as well, early college, high school, but also Title I school. Talk to us a little bit about that, and for many people that may not know, and just navigating that both, on the academic and athletic side.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. The first thing is, I'm a big advocate for equity of experience in high school soccer, right? Like, I really think that for our boys, they should have the same experiences as boys at other schools that are more affluent with, bigger programs. So, I think being at this school, being at a Title I school, where you don't have a booster club, where you don't have a lot of players who play club soccer, you are everything. You're the social media, you're the facilities manager, you're the equipment manager, you're a lot of it. We don't have a booster club. It's just me and my assistant coach that run the program. And we just try to provide the boys with an experience that we know that they would get at any other school. So, all that goes down from all the way to like purchasing quality equipment and quality uniforms, to then providing like the same kind of game day experiences, albeit whether that's meals on a budget that we can afford, or just all of it. Just how we conduct ourselves every day. I like to think of other big schools, and I think another thing that really just resonates with me in my mind is these boys. I was fortunate enough. I think I was privileged enough, right, to be able to just focus on high school soccer when I was in high school. And the boys in my program, that's not the case. They have tons of stuff going on in their lives, have way more adult things going on in their lives than I did at this time. And so keeping that in perspective as well, and how I run and manage the program, just being respectful to them, their families, the community that I serve, is, really, really important, and can also be really challenging at times as well.
I bet.
Yeah, Saturday morning games, Friday night games, and stuff like that. You just not guaranteed that you're going to have everybody every game. There's a lot of contingency required. But I know there's many coaches around the state, and definitely in Central Texas, that have those same challenges as well. So also not to focus on the challenges, but just, keep pushing, keep focused on the goals that we have to achieve, and keep working hard and playing good soccer. And, that's really one of the things that I'm proud about. I think, the program and the boys, we play some really good football at times.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that. And as is customary, Coach, we start wrapping up here now to let you go. Kind of want to give you the opportunity, if there's anything else you want to follow up in addition to what you just covered, give you the opportunity to give some shout outs, thank yous, anything that's on your mind as it relates to the game. The floor is yours.
Great. First off, I'll shout out to my team. They're coming together really, really strongly this year. They're working really hard. And so I really appreciate them and all the effort that they're putting in. Shout out to my assistant coach, Coach Melgoza. I'm pretty sure he's watching. He's done a lot to come in the program and help me move it forward as well. It might be a little bit weird, but I'm going to shout out the current Vandergrift boys soccer head coach, John Winship. He was the boys coach over here who I took over from. Actually, right in 2022 was my first year taking over from him, and he did a lot of hard work to turn the culture around in this program. They were on the end of multiple, kind of losing seasons before he got him back into the playoffs, and then I was fortunate enough to work with him and then kind of take it to another level. After he moved on to Vandergrift, and he's obviously done great things over there as well. So, shout out to everybody in Central Texas coaching high school soccer too, man. We have a lot of great coaches, a lot of great programs, a lot of great kids. I wouldn't be surprised if you have Central Texas repping 6A, 5A, 4A, which is a great thing in those state finals. So, other than that, shout out the fam, shout out my wife and the kids. They let me do it, and couldn't do it without them as well. So thank you guys. Shout out you. Last thing, man, shout out you guys. You guys do a great job of elevating the game. I'm a big fan. Before getting my first cap, I'm a big fan of the show. And thank you guys for everything you do for Texas high school soccer.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. And, you've always been gracious with us. I know conversation, I didn't get to think it was last year where you and I had a chance to have a conversation at the Tasco convention. And so excited, glad to finally be able to get you on here, and a big fan of what you're doing. Please know that, we're not in the Austin area. We're a little down south, right down in the place of real breakfast tacos right here in San Antonio. But yeah, just know that you got some fans in us, and we're well aware of what you're doing. So keep up the great work. Really appreciate you. And I like that. See that nice little Ajax scarf back there too. That's nice. I like that.
Ajax, repping Ajax since back in the DeBoer brother days, back in like '96. I have a twin brother that I played soccer with my whole life, and when we were growing up and seeing them play Champions League and stuff, made me a lifelong fan. So yeah. I'll let the breakfast taco comment slide. I heard it. Next time I'll bring you guys some Austin barbecue.
I had to sneak it in there.
No,
Coach,
thank you.
Thank you for everything. Really appreciate you. Best of luck to you and your boys the rest of the way, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
All right. Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks again to Coach Olson from Man, it's always a long title, right? I want to make sure I get it right. From Austin Northeast Early College High School, the Raiders, 25 4A. Thank you to Coach for being here. He's doing phenomenal. If you are not familiar with the story of that program, you owe it to yourself to look it up and what he's done there, and then of course what his predecessor did there too, that he mentioned as well. So, hey, we are barely halfway. Rafa, you believe that? We still got a lot of stuff to cover. So big shout out to all of you that are listening to us. We're coming up on about 500 live viewers right now and listeners across all our platforms right now. They're listening to us in both Katy and San Angelo, Amarillo and El Paso, Corpus Christi and Killeen, Salina and Austin, Texas, just to name a few. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Big supporters all across the state of Texas. We're grateful for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our partners. We're thrilled to tell you about our world-class partners, AR Shots, your go-to destination for exceptional photography experiences in San Antonio and across all of Texas. As a seasoned professional and published photographer, Alonso Ramirez specializes in capturing the essence of your most memorable moments. From dynamic team media days and live-action game days to heartwarming family gatherings and elegant senior portraits, he makes every shot count. What sets him apart? His unwavering commitment to deliver the best customer service in the Lone Star State. With major international and professional sports event experience, AR Shots' work speaks for itself. He is dedicated to making your photography experience straightforward and enjoyable. So why settle for ordinary when you can experience extraordinary with AR Shots? Contact him today so he can turn your vision into a stunning reality. Check him out at arshots.net, as well as on X and Instagram at arshots. Looking to step up your social media marketing game? Well, let us tell you about our great friends at Gipper. Gipper is a way that schools, athletic departments, ADs, and coaches create world-class marketing content. Join over 4,000 coaches, ADs, SIDs, and club directors who use Gipper to create high-quality visual branded graphics for your program. The best part? Anyone can do it in seconds on any device without needing any design experience whatsoever. If you do have significant design experience, you're going to love this as well, as you are what they call the power user, and this is designed with you in mind as well. And just for being a listener and supporter of the 50/50 podcast, you can receive savings immediately and save 10% off any first-time Gipper purchase. Simply visit gipper.com/partner/5050 to learn more. Again, that's gipper.com/partner/5050. And then there are our great friends at Global Scarves, both Bill and Kyle. They are the top providers of custom knitted scarves, beanies, and other fan merchandise in the U.S. All merch is fully custom with free design services and free shipping on all orders. They do so much more, guys, than just scarves. Blankets, beanies, you name it. It's all designed and all customized to your specifications and needs. You can contact them at info@globalscarves.com to get any free designs or quotes built out for your school, club, or maybe even a supporters group. Simply mention the podcast or use the code #5050pod and they will be sure to take care of it. All right, and we are back. Episode 5, Inside Texas High School Soccer. Rafa, it is that time, my man. The time to unveil our lists, starting with the update of our dark horse list. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. And a couple of things wanted to mention in here. Nice little Ted Lasso reference here by Coach Adams out at Salina. And we also, Lumberton, our listeners, Sooner D out from Lumberton. Thank you for tuning in as well. Appreciate you guys. Big thing we wanted to mention here with our with our dark horse list. So if you were previously on it when we first unveiled this back in, I think it was December 28th, right? A little over a month ago now. When we first unveiled it, it was our initial unveiling of the dark horse list. So now this list, what it is these are our new additions in addition to what was previously on there as well. So don't think that we left anybody off. Wanted to make sure we mentioned that, and we will add these. We will post these on social media later as well, so there is no confusion. But let's go ahead and do the unveiling here. So, all right. And we're going to start off. So our newest additions to the dark horse list, starting at the 4A level here. We're going to start off by looking at the girls. So Rafa, go ahead, take us through these first three in 4A.
So kind of coming around like up to this point of the season. So notable teams that I think have started really well and they weren't getting much attention, but I feel that, some of the teams that they've beaten, I think is make them a legit dark horse for, to contend, not only to get to, the regional final, but maybe even to the state playoffs. So I have Kennedale on there. They've great start for them, undefeated. They've been some good quality teams. Another team to which I actually was there on Monday is in Burnett, so I got to talk to some of their players.
Bulldogs, right? Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah,
Bulldogs?
Yeah,
Bulldogs.
Yeah. The Lady Bulldogs, like I said, they're off to a great start. They had a great win over the Georgetown Gateway team, and I think they were going up against Lago Vista pretty soon. It's a really tight race, but like I said, they've made the playoffs the last few years, but they're kind of like right there at the cusp of maybe taking that next step. Because you know how District 26 4A gets all the attention, especially on the girls' side with the Wimberleys and the Davenport. So keep an eye on Burnett, and then another team, Lavernia. The Lavernia girls have, like I said, they're kind of like Burnett. They've taken care of business in their district. They've made the playoffs. There's, like I said, just a step away from taking the next step to get to contend in the regionals and going on maybe hopefully the state. So those are your three dark horses for 4A.
All right, good deal. We move on here. We'll go ahead and take a look. We have 4 entries to the dark horse list for the 5A girls. Go ahead, tell us about these, Coach.
So 4 teams that kind of keep an eye on. I think they may do some damage. Jacksonville. I think we had them on the last list, and like so I think they're about to maybe no longer be that a dark horse. I think they might be a legitimate contender. So they've had a great season. Another one's Lucas Lovejoy. They actually have a win over Salina, I think. I'm not sure. I have to look at their schedule. But I think it said they're in that tough district, that tough region, that one with, you got teams like a team like Midlothian. You got those teams from the Dallas area. So it's, like I said, Argyle. It's but I think they're at the cusp of making it to, get into those next rounds. Midlothian, like I said, I know the boys, what they did last year, but I think the girls program, remember, they've kind of fell asleep a little bit, the Midlothian girls, and now I think they're kind of going to get back to where they're form, and I think they have a good chance of kind of doing the same thing with the boys did last year. And the last one I think was Brosen Centennial. Like I said, another program that's kind of on the rise. Like I said, they've made the playoffs last few years. They get to maybe round 1, round 2, but maybe this is the year that they take that next step and get to the 3rd and 4th round of the playoffs.
Yeah, so 4 entries at the 5A level for the girls here. Jacksonville, Lucas Lovejoy, Midlothian, some pretty big recognizable names here, right? So to look at them at the 5A level for dark horses. And then we wrap up with our 6A girls with 4 more entries. Take us through these, Coach.
So the next one, like I said, first one I saw is Capel. I know Capel's in the past has been, like I said, one of those powers, but the last few years, with like Flower Marcus and Flower Mound, South Lake Carroll, and then last year with Prosper. Prosper's the one that knocked them off in the first round of the playoffs. But so far, Capel's actually had a really good start. I think you got to kind of take in consideration, like I said, the history of that program. I think they want to take that next step, and maybe get some revenge on Prosper this year if they ever meet again, and maybe do the same run they did last year. So keep an eye on them. Forney had kind of out of nowhere. They've done some really good things this year. In their area, Wiley East, and Rockwall are the ones that kind of get the attention, but I was those 2 programs I keep, kind of look behind my shoulder. I think Forney may have a say, this year, and they could surprise and maybe be a Region 2 representative. Kingwood girls, they haven't really made much noise the last few years. I know they've made made playoffs, but haven't really made deep runs. But I think the team that they have this year, I think they have a good chance to do so. And same thing with Tomball as well. I think Tomball Memorial kind of gets more of the recognition, the coverage. But I think this Tomball team, I think they may have a say this year, and I wouldn't be surprised. They can contend for the Region 3 title.
Yeah, some very strong, very big programs of note here in 6A. And keep in mind, right, I think a big reminder for people is with the dark horse list, we are not calling these, there's a difference between a dark horse and an underdog, right? What we're saying with these dark horses is maybe they're not quite being spoken about as much, but they're still bona fide contenders, right? For within their districts, within their regions, and then maybe to make a deep run potentially in the state playoffs, right? So I know you mentioned Forney. Forney, I don't know if I think I could make the argument that I don't know if it would be out of nowhere, right? Because it just seems like they've been building towards this, right? So program that we've been tracking carefully, been tracking closely, and then you see Capel. Capel is just like, wow, the fact that they're on here, maybe kind of returning to their old form. So great to see them in the mix as well. Great to see. So that does it for our girls dark horse list. Then we move over to our boys here, starting with 4A. We have 3 entries here. Coach, take us through these.
Well, like I said, here we have Austin Northeast Early College High School.
Never heard of them.
Like I said, I don't think we heard of them. I think I think they have a really good chance. We've kind of actually me and Harry kind of discussed this. If you watch us on the Central Roundtable, if you watch this Thursday, we're actually going to talk about Region 4 possible playoff sales, but we kind of looked at it a little bit. I think Northeast, I know they may go D1. I think they have a good shot, to make it back, with that run that they did in 2022. I think they have a good chance of mimicking the same way and getting to maybe even be the Region 4 representative for D1 Region 4. Another team, Castleberry. They fell a little short last year. This year, another great start. They're, I know Hill Jarvis kind of, gets there. It's kind of been the thorn on their side, but
right.
I think this year, I think Castleberry could have the team this year to finally get over the hump and be a representative for the Region 1. And then another team that's kind of, has made the playoffs, but not much recognition is North Dallas. And right now, North Dallas is undefeated. Keep an eye on them. They may, like I said, kind of be that one team that you maybe don't want to play in the playoffs, and if they get hot towards the end and make a deep run and be that representative from that region, Region 2 area.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, rightfully so. I think given everything that we just talked about with Coach Olson, right? Not a shocker, not a surprise. They have definitely earned the right to be on this list in Northeast Early College High School. And Castleberry, right? We talked about Castleberry, I think was in the RPI kind of throughout the season last year. And then just kind of seemed like they just ran out of steam late in the season, right? So right around where the playoffs began. North Dallas is an interesting one. They look awfully strong right now. So yeah, would definitely agree with all 3 of these. And we move on to let me go back here. Sorry, we move on to there we go. Hold on. I think I skipped one here. Yeah, I did skip one here. So we should have our skipped our 4. There we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry, had a little glitch here, technical difficulty. But we move on to our 5A boys here with 4 entries, and take it away, Rafa.
So you mentioned about this team earlier in the season, and because like I said, I know Walnut Grove, we had them on the list last time, but Walnut Grove's kind of already. I think they're probably going to be a contender. Yeah, but this is a team that's in their district, McKinney North. They're going to play each other, I think, this week. McKinney North can make a statement this week, by beating Walnut Grove. And they may be a legitimate representative for Region 2 there for 5A. Another team, I guess, Kukui always gets the recognition, but Frisco Reedy starting to make some noise.
They are. They did it. They are legit. Yeah, I think they are legit. I think they're for real. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, they were kind of throwing little monkey wrenches on them and Lone Star. I think this year I think they may have it together here. And like I said, they're going to be a thorn on somebody's side, and maybe maybe the other. We could see 2 Frisco teams in the state finals. So we'll see. And then we have Kingwood Park. Like I said, Kingwood Park's kind of not. I think they're starting to get things together now. I know they made a run a few years ago, but I think we're probably one of the better teams here. The kind of best secrets out of King, as far as 5A in the Houston area. I think they're going to make it. I think I have positives making a deep run. And then you have a team from Dallas, Dallas White, kind of similar to North Dallas. They played some quality opponents, and that's another team that you might want to face, in the first and second round in the playoffs. And they, like I said, I think they can have a chance to go maybe 3 or 4 deep.
This is an interesting group here. A very interesting group. And I know these first two, right? I think you and I were both big. I was very big. I talked a lot about North, just to keep your eye on McKinney North. And I know you hit on Frisco Reedy quite a bit to start the year. So interesting to see where these two are. And I think K Park they're an interesting one because I feel like they definitely belong on this list. But you kind of get the impression like they're still figuring a lot of things out, which is scary, right? Which is how well they've played so far. So, yeah. And then a Dallas ISD school in Dallas White, which could be interesting. That could really kind of throw a monkey wrench into the mix. So very excited to see what unfolds for these programs. And now we move on to our 6A programs here with our final 4 entries of the Dark Horse list. Take it away, Coach.
So I have Ailey Elsick here on this list. I may not have them on this list maybe the next time because they're exceeding expectations right now, and they're on a roll, and they haven't lost a game. Are they going to make that run like they did a few years ago? And Katie Similake's kind of looking at their back at these guys and said maybe it'll be interesting if they do face each other in the playoffs. Another team is Irvin, and remember Irvin had a good year a couple years ago too. They were there was a surprise and made a good run. Last year there was kind of like a little drop off, but it looks like they got it back together and they could be legit there in their region. Out of East Texas, Tyler Legacy. I don't think they get East Texas gets a lot of love when it comes to maybe Palestine kind of gets more of the say over there in East Texas, but keep an eye on Tyler Legacy. I think they're building something great there, and I think they have a good shot doing some damage in Region 2. And then the last a team I had pleasure to watch yesterday, Steve told me about this. Hey, you need to check these guys out. The San Antonio Brandeis. Brandeis, last year they had a lot of high expectations and they kind of fell short. They had a coaching change and they had some graduation losses, but what I saw yesterday afternoon, it didn't seem that they lost a lot in graduation. And the crazy part is their goalkeeper, who was one of their central midfielders, he's actually starting keeper. This is his first time he's playing keeper. Wow. He did an excellent job yesterday, clearing balls away, saving shots against Clark. And right now they're first place. Like I said, they've already beaten Lee. They've already, said, this is a team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. And maybe even, like I said, they also did beat Lake Travis too early in the season. I think they have a good shot. Maybe, finally kind of get over the hump. They've fallen short maybe 2-3 rounds. Maybe they finally get to that regional semifinal final. So keep an eye on Brandeis. Yeah.
Great group here. You talk about, Ailey Felsick, who is, I would agree, just like surpassing a lot of people's expectations, probably other than their own. Irving back in the mix after kind of being away last year. And Tyler Legacy, a very well coached squad. And then San Antonio Brandeis, right? I think, and you hit on it, right? With early season victories already out of district versus Lake Travis, and then into big district wins versus both Lee and who's the other one? Johnson, right?
Johnson
in the same week, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that says a lot about a squad who you weren't entirely sure what you were going to see from them when they graduated. A good amount of talent, and they have a first-year coach. So glad to see that they are, I think, surprising some people along the way. Maybe not themselves, but definitely going to make 29 6A a very interesting district as well. So. All right, that does it for our Dark Horse list. And now the unveiling, Coach, of our first edition, right, of our our new one, the Hidden Gem list. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
So these hidden gems are teams that kind of not so much as far as like the Dark Horse list, because with the Dark Horse list, there's are teams that maybe could go on to win the region and go on to state. These hidden gems are more like teams that, the maybe we didn't see much as far as expectations from them. We didn't think maybe they weren't going to do much. Not saying, not to put that as a bad thing. We weren't sure what they were going to do, but they're exceeding expectations and could be, maybe end up getting into that dark horse list later on. So it's and was able to find quite a few of them, and it's an interesting list. And like I said, just keep an eye on a lot of these teams, because I think they're going to do, I believe, like I said, there's some damage, in the playoffs, and you cannot take them lightly. Going to if they play somebody in March.
Right. All right, and here we go. We're going to start off with the girls' side of our first edition of our Hidden Gems. We start off with 4A girls here with 4 entries. Thoughts on these, Coach?
So these are teams that just to keep an eye on. Like I said, they're having excellent seasons. Bullard off to a great start. Viters, I've been cheering about Viter. You hear more about Lumberton's girls team, but they're in the same district, and it's going to be interesting when they do face off. Can Viter take that next step? And if they beat Lumberton, and now you're thinking, hey, and now I think it could be a really serious contender, not only for the district title, but also maybe the region. Another team is Madisonville. You don't hear much about a program like Madisonville. Look at the record. They're off to a great start. I think they may be a team that you don't want to face in the playoffs. And then here in Region 4, I know, like I said, Burnett is in the same district with us, Lago Vista. They haven't played each other yet, but it's going to be interesting when they hook up. I think this coming week. But they're also to a great start because they just barely started soccer not too long ago, so they're exceeding expectations. So keep an eye on them, and they may be a team that could surprise, in Region 4.
Now they are what are they again? Is it year 3, 2 or 3?
I think 2 or 3. Yeah.
I thought they came on board the same time as Fabens did out in the El Paso area. I think this is I thought this was year 3 for them, but not 100% certain on that one. Anybody can help us fact check us on that. If what season of sanctioned UAL soccer this is for Lago Vista, please let us know. Would love to research that one if we can't. But all right, that does it for 4A girls. We move on to 5A girls with 4 more entries. Thoughts on these, Coach?
Other programs, like I said, here in 5A, like I said, we got a lot of quality programs, especially on the girls' side. But these 4 are kind of, like I said, they really kind of stood out because they weren't receiving much attention. First one is Birdville. Birdville's in the tough district. They're off to a great start. That's, like I said, a team that to keep an eye on and maybe could be a factor, going into the playoffs. Out in East Texas, Barbers Hill, another the ladies are doing a great job. They could do, like I said, there's some damage coming up. Pflugerville Weiss, you saw what Hendrickson did last year, and they're in the same district with Georgetown. But Weiss is kind of, like I said, they weren't really mentioned a lot. And look at the great, like I said, look at the great start they're in. And I think they had a win they have a win over Hendrickson, I believe, and I think they're gonna hook up with Georgetown pretty soon. So that'll tell a lot with that game. If they can get a win in that game, like I said, this program could be heading in the right direction. And then down in the Coastal Bend, Gregory Portland, they've been, a team that does, they don't get talked about a lot. I know a few years ago they had a good run, but this year I think they have the pieces here to maybe, kind of throw a monkey wrench in Region 4, depending which, if they end up with D1 or D2. But, this is a team that maybe you might want to face and they can give you some problems and maybe even knock you off out of the, in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. And keep in mind, again, this hidden gem list, very different in terms of your dark horse list, right? These hidden gems here, these are teams that are they potentially sneaking up on people? People are sleeping on them. People weren't quite sure what to expect from them, or they've clearly exceeded early season expectations. So these are some teams that have really stood out to us very early in the season. All right, and we move on to our final list on the girls' side with our final 4 entries here at the 6A level. Thoughts on these, Coach?
So these other programs, like I said, these 4 really kind of stood out. in 6A, Weatherford. You know how brutal Region 1 is. You know, you have, like I said, your Flower Mound, Marcus, Prosper, South Lake Carroll. But Weatherford's off to a great start, and they may, be a team that maybe don't want to face in round 1 or round 2. And I think they may have that talent to surprise some teams and go deep. Katie Tompkins, we know about what Seven Lakes has done, but Katie Tompkins is off to a great start. I think believe they have a win over Seven Lakes. And so now they've kind of shown the other teams in that really tough district is like, hey, we're legit, we're for real, and we may be the one that comes out of Region 3. Another team is Houston Lamar. The same thing out of Region 3 too. They're off to a great start. Maybe they end up facing Tompkins in the playoffs too. That would be a great game. If you're out there, we do see in March, and then in the Valley, normally in 6A, it's either Los Fresnos or Harlingen South, but the Westaco Lady Panthers, I know the softball team got a lot of coverage last year with that home run that they won.
The all-time classic win, the all-time walk-off?
Yeah. Maybe it's some of that is a little kind of sprinkle off on the girls, rubbing off on the girls soccer team. So, but like I said, the ladies are off to a great start, and they could pose a problem, in the playoffs there, and maybe even problems to maybe the teams up here when they get to the third round.
Yeah, great group here, and I really like seeing Coach Shipman, Jarrett Shipman, shout out to him, seeing his Katie Tompkins girls on here. He's done great work there, and yeah, Westlaco, very cool to see them on here. Houston Lamar, and then Weatherford. I remember I saw that when you shared that with me. I was like, whoa, I got to go back and check up on them. So a great group here. So big shout out to our initial group of our hidden gems that make the list here on the girls side. And we will move on now and take a look at the boys, starting with 4A. Coach.
So another, like I said, programs here, Longview Pine Tree. Like I said, I think they're, Palestine, like I said, they get the attention with what they've done. And like I said, and truly earned. But Pine Tree may be that team that maybe, hey, you know what? We're going to have a say on this. So keep a good eye on them. The second team, I've been hearing a lot of talk about, and they've knocked up some really good teams, is Decatur. And Decatur's out of nowhere. They're off to a really good start, and they may pose some problems in Region 1. Be interesting if maybe they face Sanelli in the playoffs. That's a possibility. I think that'd be a really good game. It'd be a long drive to the game. So, but I think that'd be a fun one. Another team.
No home and home flip on that one.
No, we'll probably end up playing in New Mexico or something, somewhere in Clovis or something. Another team from the Region 1 is San Angelo Lakeview. They've been, they've been a playoff team, but they haven't had much of it as far as the attention. I think this year they may have the pieces to maybe go deeper into the playoffs. So keep an eye on them. And then Lampasas, like I said, I was there Friday, talked to some of the boys. They're very, very excited about their season, the great start. They're about to start district play. Keep an eye on them. I think they're going to surprise some teams. They beat a really good Fredericksburg boys team earlier in the week, and like I said, I expect some good things here, and good chance that they could win their district title.
Yeah, interesting group here. Very interesting group here. Excited to see this. And Lakeview's kind of been a program that's kind of yo-yoed a little bit, right? In and out, in and out a little bit too. So yeah, so not surprised to see them on this list as well. And Lampasas, who as of late, up until the last couple of years, you had seen more success for them on their girls front. So yeah, good to see the boys making some noise as well. We move on to 5A here with 4 more entries. Tell us about these 4, Coach.
Well, like we mentioned before, as far as McKinney North, I mean, what can you say about them? I think they weren't spoken a lot. I think they're going to do some damage this season, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up being a representative for the region. Another team that's been kind of just kind of flown under the radar is Denton. Denton's really gotten everything together, pieced everything together. They're undefeated. They're in first place in their district. Like I said, I think they may, like I said, they gonna give a lot of problems to a lot of teams in the region. Here in region, and then we have 2 teams here in region 4. Lockhart, the Lockhart boys, they're off to a great start.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking, like I said, I've talked to some of the girls team. They're also having a good season too. But the Lockhart boys have really kind of pieced things together, and they're in that tough district with Leander Glen, Rouse, Cedar Park.
Right.
So they know they have to bring their A game in that. But for them, for the what they're doing right now, I think they have a legitimate shot to get, like I said, getting into the playoffs and maybe even give some problems to some of those teams in District 26 5A. Once they get to whether it's D1 or D2, and then another team that I actually got to see play here in San Antonio is Laredo Nixon. They're off to a great start. They're a very talented team. They can touch the ball. They knocked off probably one of the perennial powers was La Jolla Juarez Lincoln. And Nixon's has pretty much kind of gotten a kind of stranglehold on the district lead, and they actually knocked off the rivals Laredo Morton this week. So keep an eye on them. They may, be a factor going into the playoffs, and maybe like I said, I know the Brownsville team's gonna get I think the Brownsville team's kind of be a little worried about them because I think they'd be able to they can do some damage, going into in that playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah, Laredo Nixon starting to separate from their district pretty early, right? So I have to double check that. I can't remember if they were 4 or 5 games into district play already. I have to double check that. But yeah, great group. Lockhart, I know for our Lockhart listeners, if you're out there listening, I know Rafa has he just is looking for a reason to get there and go watch a game. So give him or he says he's going to watch a game, but he's really going for he can be he can be finagled with barbecue, right? So who wouldn't, right? Great barbecue there. So great to see Lockhart on this list as well. And we move on. Our final list here, our final 4 6A boys. Take it away, Coach.
So this is an interesting group. Here's with El Paso Socorro. Believe it or not, they're 8-0, and they're in the same district with East Lake.
Yeah, and they're in that mighty 1-6A, that tough,
and Pebble Hills. And I don't think those two expected them to have this great of a start. And I think they did defeat East Lake. I think they have a game coming up, I think, with Pebble Hills. If they can win that game, this could be I'm not saying a Cinderella team, but could be a very dangerous team going into Region 1. Maybe they make a same run like what East Lake did a few years ago. Down in the valley, Enderberg and Cotomides, they're off to a great start. I know last year Enderberg North was the one that, kind of got all, had the attention because they made it to the regional final. And it's actually Enderberg North that knocked, I think, Cotomides out of the playoffs. So I think they want some revenge this year, and then maybe they're going to be the one that's going to represent, the Valley here in the regional final. Another team I'll be hearing a lot of buzz about is Browsenswood. Like I said,
you've been big on them for a few weeks now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're off to a good start. I think they're a team that could be seriously really dangerous, and once they get into the playoffs, and they're well coached and very talented, and like I said, they're in Region 3. They really kind of keep an eye on them. They could do some. Like I said, I think they're going to do some great stuff. And then another team is Arlington Morton. They, the Arlington teams don't really get much attention, and mostly it's, like I said, it's all like your Salt Lake Curls or your Capels, your Flower Mounds. But this Arlington Morton team may end up surprising some those teams in Region 1. And like I said, they're off to a good start. And like I said, they're still in a tough district. I think they could surprise some teams, going up in the playoffs in March.
Yeah. Great group. And that does it for our initial unveiling of the Hidden Gems list here. Great group there. I'm kind of curious, Coach. I was going to ask you, what did you find along the way when you're diving into your research on these hidden gems? what maybe surprised? What stood out to you? What maybe surprised you in terms of the research amongst these groups that they kind of these squads all had in common? Maybe it was different on the boys' side versus the girls' side. What stood out to you?
I think a lot of them had that like a signature win with against a team that we maybe like have talked about or has a reputation of always being in the playoffs or winning district titles. Some of these teams have had those signature wins, and like a case like Socorro, them knocking off Eastlake. Eastlake, look what they've done the last few years, and and for them to go to beat them, that was a statement made, and it's
Yeah,
a
and
quality win for that
that's
program.
not an eye opener in just El Paso either. That's like a statewide eye opener. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, no doubt.
So it's those little things there, and that's what I was kind of looking for. Maybe there were some teams that maybe had some really good records, but they weren't really playing anybody. You know, but what I look for is that was there a signature win against a playoff team that has a reputation, and or has a really good reputation when it comes to that district too, and that's what these teams all had in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Great stuff. Really appreciate that. Hopefully, got some people maybe by surprise there with the hidden gems, but really appreciate that. We'll put that out as well. And like I said, keep plugging away. Still a long way to go in terms of district play for sure. But big shout out again to our listeners, our supporters everywhere. We got about 850 strong listeners and live viewers across the state right now. We mentioned earlier they're also listening to us in Brownsville, as well as McAllen, Beaumont, and Midland, as well as Denton and Abilene, just to name a few. So big shout out to our listeners everywhere, all across the state. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening. Don't go anywhere, I should say. Make sure and tell others about the podcast. Make sure you share, like, rate, subscribe. You can find us on Twitter X, or Twix as we call it, at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. YouTube is our big one that we're trying to grow right now, just because it's taken me a while now to realize that after multiple conversations I've had over the last 6 months with coaches, parents, players, tons and tons and tons of people who they tell us, hey, we like your content. When are you going to come out? When's your next episode? And they think they're subscribed to us, particularly on YouTube, and they're not, right? Come to find out that they're not. So go on there, make sure, subscribe, hit that bell for the live notifications, and I promise you'll probably miss less than 1% of what we put out there, because just about everything we do is live. That's how we do it here. It's live, uncut, and raw. So you get to see our screw ups and our mistakes along the way too. So, but yeah, that's how we do it. So thank you to all our listeners across the state, all our listeners and supporters across the state of Texas. And then in addition to watching us live, or you can go back and watch us, of course, there's the actual audio podcast, right? Whatever your preferred podcast platform may be. Some of you, it might be, a lot of you, it's Apple Podcasts, some it's Spotify, whatever it may be, right? You go on there as well. Give us a review and like, rate, and subscribe, but give us a review on there as well. That always helps makes us more visible within these algorithms as well. So, all right, we've got one more thing to get to, Coach. We've got our teams of the week, which we are going to discuss here. So we're going to start with you, Rafa. So take it away as you discuss your both boys and girls teams of the week.
So the teams of the week that I selected, I had the pleasure to watch this week. Like I said, yesterday I got to see the San Antonio Brandeis Broncos. Great team, very well coached, lots of talent, work really great as a unit. Like I mentioned, we have them in the dark horse list. They keep an eye on this team. They're in first place in that really tough 27 6A. They got three signature wins already this season against Lake Travis, Lee and Johnson. Like I said, so they're off to a great start. So they're my team of the week. And then my other team of the week is I had the pleasure to watch them on Tuesday. First time, like I said, I heard about the buzz about Salado, so I went to go check them out. Had an opportunity, and a great squad. They have a lot of talent, and this is a team, like I said, year in, year out. They've been a contender. They've been to the state tournament. I think this is the what I saw on the field on Tuesday night. They have the pieces to make another long, deep run, and maybe finally kind of get over the hump and maybe lift that trophy there in Georgetown. So those are my two teams of the week.
Good deal and awesome. Yeah, I know we talked about both of these groups. Different. What was your thought, right? Salado, I know you've been big on them for a while now. What did they validate in person that you had maybe been hearing, or we had discussed, or some of our sources had told us about? What did they validate watching them in person?
They just blitzkrieg you. That's why I'm going to call their offense. It's a blitzkrieg. I mean, they scored, I think, like 6 goals in 12 minutes, somewhere around there. I mean, they're that fat. They're fast. They can touch the ball. They communicate very well. And the one thing I think what could be the difference this year is they're deep in the bench. And then some of the coaches that we had, like for their coach in 4A, they mentioned that if you don't have that deep bench, that could come into effect in those long playoff runs.
Right.
And what the Salado girls have, they have a bench, and when they put in their players, they don't lose. Like I said, they don't lose the beat. They keep the same intensity or they raise it up, and so they're gonna be a team that, like I said, I know they have a big game coming up, I think, against Giddings, and that's going to be a really good test for them. So if you're out there, make sure you watch that game because it's going to be a good one. Because Giddings, like I said, Giddings is not a slouch either, so they're going to give these girls a game, and but it should be a fun one coming up. But like I said, I was just impressed at how they press, how they just basically, like I said, they just blitzkrieg you and not give you any space to get out of your defensive area.
Yeah, Blitzkrieg. That one hadn't come out all season so far, so first time. So, all right, we move on. And now we look at my teams of the week here, and so kind of went a different route here, both with 4A and 6A respectively, and big victory, right? I wanted San Antonio Kennedy on Friday had a big victory big upset over San Antonio Memorial, and pulled away from them in a interesting scoreline, right? 8-5 in that match. But big shout out, big kudos to San Antonio Kennedy, the Rockets, who made, I think probably had the result of the night in the greater San Antonio area, right? In terms of just eye-opening. It's like, whoa, right? Just because they were going into this match, they had two victories on the season. And that's kind of also, keep in mind one of these things. There's so much more that's going on with these programs, with these rosters, with these teams beyond their record, right? Sometimes I can tell you for a fact that the flu bug is hitting multiple programs right now, on top of injuries and what have you. You might have showcases, you might have different events, but the flu bug is definitely in effect, especially in the greater San Antonio area. So shout out to San Antonio Kennedy. And then on the girls' side, Austin High, the Maroons, with a big result it was a draw, but still a big result in a 1-1 draw versus Austin Westlake on Friday. And I think that was kind of one that got a lot of people's attention, got some people to open their eyes a little bit. And but I know it just seems like Austin High is almost kind of to be expected, where they put out one of these kind of results almost every year, right? So shout out to the Maroons, the Lady Maroons there from Austin High, in a 1-1 draw versus Austin Westlake. So congratulations to them. And any thoughts or questions on these two, Coach?
Yeah, the Kennedy boys, like you mentioned, they hadn't had the best start to the season, but
right,
a win like that can really change things, turn things around, and especially momentum. And I did get to see the Memorial boys play about a week ago, a couple of weeks ago against Cole, and I thought they were a very good team, well coached team. They had they touched the ball well. I thought going in, it's like, hey, this could get ugly, but kudos to Kennedy. I mean, it was to have 13 goals in the game. It was a big shootout there at they're at Mata Vernon, well, Mata Stadium, I call it. It was I'm sure the fans got their money's worth. And then, like I said, Austin High getting that result against Westlake,
Right.
a state finalist, a good confidence booster for them too. I mean,
Mhm.
it's games like those that could change the trajectory of your season, because then your players could start believing, and like I said, I've been in that before. I remember one year we had a signature win against against O'Connor, and we ended their 30-game winning streak, and we just went on a roll all the way towards, kind of like I said, towards the, all the way to the to the area round. So those games do mean a lot, and they, like I said, they could change programs around, and we'll see what these two teams can do here on out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens from here with these. So I agree. Definitely agree. All right, Coach, that is it, man. It is in the books. It is episode 5 of Inside Texas High School Soccer. Big shout out, big thank you to both Coach Michael Strong as well as Coach Kyle Olson of both the Bernie Greyhounds and the Northeast Early College High School Raiders, respectively. Thank you to both of them for being here. Their accessibility, really appreciate them. They gave us some great insight. Make sure you go back in there and give it a listen as well. But before we go, Coach, your final shout outs, thoughts, anything, stoppage time. What do you got for us?
Stoppage time. So this week, like I said, I'll be out a couple games. Hopefully, I haven't decided where yet, so keep an eye on for that. And then I'll be, like I said, in the Austin area this week. I probably won't be able to go because I'll be back on Friday because I have an event with SAFC. But I will be in the West Texas. I will be in Odessa. So I'm looking forward to one game in particular. I'm not going to say which one, so tune in. If you follow the round table, you'll see where I'm at. And then, like I said, we'll have a show. Yeah. So the round table, like I said, will be on Thursday. I think we even have a San Antonio RPI, but also we're going to have a preview of our mock bracketology for 5A, D1, and D2. And we did one for 6A. So if you didn't you want to see for Region 4, check it out. We had Steve on. Like I said, it did take a while, so we might kind of edit a little bit this time. But like I said, I can only imagine for bracketology how long it's going to be. But yeah, we're going to do a little preview for 5A, Division 1, Division 2 for boys and girls. Harry's working on that. Harry always does a great job on that. And then and I'm about to hop on after this to another one. So if you're a fan of San Antonio FC, so I'll be on the Fast Cash show at 7:30. So we're going to talk about the little scrimmage against UIW.
Yeah, you're doing double duty, man. So I mean, there's people that are San Antonio FC fans, and then the people who just don't know they're San Antonio FC fans yet, right? So, yeah. What time? So on the Fancast, SAFC Fancast, what time are you guys going live with that?
So we'll be going live on 7:30, and you can catch us on YouTube and Facebook. And I think if you follow Harry, I think we have it also on X2 as well. I think we're going to talk about the 2 new signings. I think we're becoming Team Columbia now for SAFC.
Feel free to share my video that I shared with you with Harry as an intro. Might make a great intro video, right?
Hopefully he gets the right intro right, because the last time we had the round tables into the Fatcast. So I'm sure Royce is going to make sure of that.
I had to give him grief. Any chance I can give him grief just because of his Real Madrid shenanigans, I'm going to. So, but yeah, no, great stuff. Would you say 7:30? 7:30 tonight?
Yeah, 7:30. So we'll be on Saturday. Yeah, so if you want to check out what for the SAFC Fancast, that's our show dedicated to SAFC. So we're going to talk about the 2 signings, and then the little details of the scrimmage, and then what's coming up. I think they have a big scrimmage, I think, this weekend against SMU. It should be interesting. A good warm up for them.
Yeah. So because the UIW one was yesterday, right? Their scrimmage.
Yeah, UIW.
Right?
Yeah. And then on the February 22nd, they have a live game at Toyota against El Paso Locomotive.
Gotcha.
So if you're an STM member, you'll have a ticket to watch that game.
Yeah, good deal. Shout out to our one of our correspondents, our team members here from the podcast, Mr. Michael Merritt. Great show as always, gentlemen. Appreciate you, Mr. Merritt. Thank you. Big supporter. And out in Katie, really appreciate you. Sooner D also with a great message. Thank you for your support. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. And then, of course, one of our grumpy favorites, Coach Heyman, who is still salty from his Houston Cougs men's basketball team blowing a lead, blowing the game versus Texas Tech yesterday. So, I'll give him I'll give him this one today. But shout out to Coach Heyman as well. So I did have one for you, Coach. One.
Mhm.
So, parent actually asked me this the other day. It's like, hey, could you ask Rafa this? And I said, you know what? I'll just ask him on the air so you can share with everybody. So FAFSA, right? Question was FAFSA. When should the question was, my son has applied for FAFSA already. When should we find out, or when will we know what they are awarded? So mom was
Okay.
mom was unclear. So I don't know. Can you share that?
Sure. So if anyone's a senior, when it comes to the FAFSA, it's free. Everyone is eligible for the FAFSA. One thing about I'll let you know about the FAFSA, you can list up to 10 universities on your FAFSA, but you got to make sure you've been accepted by all those universities. So if in order for a university to process your FAFSA, that way you can receive an award letter, you got to be accepted. So make sure you're already taking care of your admissions. If you haven't heard back from your school that you applied to, give them a call your recruiter or your admissions counselor, say, hey, what's my status? Or if you haven't accepted, send your documents in, like your fee waivers and your transcripts. That's something that I have to deal with every day. So,
Right.
But when it comes to the FAFSA, like I said, depending on the universities, normally priority deadlines are like sometimes are February 15th, March 15th. You'll start to see getting award letters around late March, early April. And when you get those, make sure you've already set up your portals with those schools. And make sure, one thing is that a lot of students don't know this, make sure you accept your financial aid. Whether if you're going there or not, go ahead and accept it. They're not going to hold it to you. But the thing is, you're holding on to that money that's been promised to you. So if you do decide to maybe change, or you have a change of heart and go somewhere else, or you go to plan B, that money's still there and it's not taken away. So make sure also, like I said, fill out the FAFSA, because a lot of the universities do use it as a scholarship application to get your institutional scholarships. And one advice I can tell her and also the students out there, if you have FAFSA nights at your high schools, please attend those. Take full advantage of that. Those are free events that your counselors can help you, or sometimes university representatives show up, depending where you live at. Take full advantage of that, and also make sure you're also applying for your outside scholarships. Don't just depend on your Pell grants, your state grants, institutional scholarships. Make sure you go to websites like your FAFSA or scholarships.coms. If you want some good website, hit me up on X. I got some good websites you can go to. You can apply for scholarships. But like I said, if you are a senior, you should already be sending it right now. Make sure also you do your FSA ID. That is very important, because you got to do one for yourself and for your parents. That's your electronic signature, so make sure you have that. And then just take full advantage of your resources. If you don't know something, if you have a question on that, please call your financial aid office for the university you're planning to attend. They can help you out and answer a lot of the questions, especially I know there's probably some players out there or students out there that have maybe you're eligible for Hazelwood Act or GI Bill. We have veteran services for that. So it all ties into working with the students when it comes to financial aid.
Yeah, great stuff, great info, and we'll be sure to make sure that Rafa shares that a little bit more, especially for our seniors as we get closer to graduation. He's a great resource on that front as well for us to have, and we're lucky to have him for that. So thank you, Rafa. My final message before we go is just this week, 2 weeks ago, it was this whole portion of the state, really the entire state, was pretty much frozen, right? And then we got the southern half of the state got some interesting weather, right? Now it's going to be the opposite. We have places that are going to hit 80 plus and even 90s early in the week and throughout the week. So our athletes hydrate often, stay on top of that, because I know sometimes when you start going to these bit of these extremes from one to the other, it's real easy to not stay on top of your hydration. So and then that's where injuries, all kinds of different things and dangerous things can happen. So stay on top of that. Hydrate, sunscreen, all that good stuff. Stay on top of that. Make sure you are ready for the week ahead. And other than that, that's all I really got. Thank you again to Coach Strong, Coach Olson, for joining us. Thank you again to Rafa. Thank you again. Congrats to everybody who was also mentioned in the dark horse list, as well as our initial unveiling of the Hidden Gems list. And last thing for all our listeners, right? We have, excuse me, we have over 900 live listeners, or pushing over 900 live listeners. Mentioned a couple of different places. They're also listening to us in Allen, McKinney, Georgetown, and of course, the great city of San Antonio. Thank you to all our listeners everywhere. Like, rate, and subscribe. Make sure you can follow us. You can follow us on Twitter X at 50_50 podcast, on Instagram Live at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at or the 50_50 podcast. So that is going to do it. Episode 5 of Inside Texas High School Soccer in the books. We will be back in the next couple of weeks with episode 6. So you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on X at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.